The city glittered, a sprawling tapestry of ambition and loneliness, and at its zenith, Alexander Vance was the richest ghost in the room. The diamond-studded elevator descended towards the bustling bistro, carrying within it the three most lonely souls in the city. Alexander Vance adjusted the simple wool scarf around his neck, a stark contrast to the custom-tailored Italian suit he'd left in his penthouse. The man in the elevator's reflective walls was a stranger, softer, poorer, lesser. He'd traded his Rolex for a simple leather-strap timepiece and arrived in a modest sedan instead of his usual chauffeured Maybach. "Do I look okay, Daddy?" Lily whispered, her small hand finding his. She wore her best dress, a splash of sunny yellow. "You look perfect, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick. He squeezed her hand, then reached for his son. "You too, champ. Ready to meet someone nice?" Liam, ever the pragmatist, just shrugged, his gaze fixed on the descending numbers. "As long as she doesn't try to pinch my cheeks." The charade was a desperate gamble. 5 years a widower, Xander's life was a fortress of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, but his 6-year-old twins were crumbling within its cold walls. They missed a mother's touch. He missed a real connection. Every woman who entered his orbit saw only the dollar signs, the power, the Vance empire. So, he decided to become a ghost. A man named Alex, a struggling freelance graphic designer, a widower just trying to make ends meet for his twins. The bistro was warm and noisy, smelling of roasted coffee and baked bread. And there she was, Alara, sitting at a corner table, a half-finished cup of tea before her. She wasn't like the polished, predatory socialites he was used to. Her beauty was quiet, the kind you had to lean in to truly see. Warm brown eyes, a smile that seemed genuinely nervous, and a simple sweater that spoke of comfort, not couture. "You must be Alex," she said, standing. Her voice was like music he hadn't realized he was missing. "And these are your brilliant conspirators." Lily beamed. Liam offered a cautious, "Hello." The conversation started stiffly, a dance of pleasantries. Xander, as Alex, spun his carefully crafted tale of freelance woes and school fees. "So it's just us, trying to figure it out," he finished, the light tasting like ash. Alara listened, her eyes not leaving his face. "It sounds incredibly hard," she said, and there was no pity in her tone, only a deep, resonant understanding. "But you have each other. That's the real wealth, isn't it?" The words struck a chord so deep within him he almost flinched. Real wealth. He had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, yet this woman, in a single sentence, made him feel like a pauper. The afternoon unfolded in a series of small, heart-stopping moments. Lily, usually shy, crawled onto Alara's lap to show her a picture she'd drawn. Alara didn't just coo, she examined it with genuine interest. "The use of purple here for the sky is brilliant. It's a sad, hopeful color, isn't it?" Liam, watching from a distance, finally approached with his Rubik's Cube, a constant companion. "Can you solve it?" he challenged. Alara took it, her fingers moving with a quiet confidence. "My brother had one. Drove me crazy." In less than a minute, the colored squares aligned. Liam's jaw dropped, and for the first time, a true, unguarded smile broke through his reserve. Xander watched, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. This was it. This was the connection he'd been starving for. She wasn't looking at him as a provider or a prize. She was seeing the man he was pretending to be, and she was staying. She was gentle, and funny, and she saw his children, truly saw them. As they walked her, to her old, slightly dented sedan, the twins chattering excitedly about the next time they could see her, Xander felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in years. Pure, unadulterated hope. "I had a really nice time, Alex," Alara said, turning to him. The streetlights cast a golden halo around her hair. "Me too," he breathed, his CEO persona completely obliterated by the raw man beneath. "The twins, they don't warm up to people easily. They're wonderful. You've done an amazing job with them." She hesitated, then leaned in, pressing a soft, fleeting kiss to his cheek. "Call me." He could only nod, watching her drive away, the ghost of her kiss burning on his skin, a brand of both promise and deceit. That night, in the deafening silence of his penthouse, the guilt began to curdle the joy. The twins were asleep, dreaming of picnics and a new mother figure. Xander stared at the city lights, his kingdom of glass and steel. He had found a woman who wanted the man, not the millionaire. But the man she wanted was a fiction. He was living the ultimate paradox. To be loved for who he was, he had to pretend to be someone he was not. He made a decision. He would tell her, soon. He would confess the entire, sordid deception and pray that the connection they'd forged was strong enough to survive the truth. He fell into a fitful sleep, dreaming of warm brown eyes turning cold with a week passed in a blur of stolen moments. Picnics in the park where Xander, as Alex, brought simple sandwiches while Alara brought stories that made the twins laugh until they cried. A trip to the planetarium where she knew all the constellations, her voice a soft whisper in the dark, explaining the myths behind the stars. With every passing hour, the lie grew heavier, a leaden weight in Xander's chest, even as his love for her grew lighter, threatening to float away with his sanity. He had to tell her. He planned it for a quiet dinner, just the two of them. He would take her to a nice, but not extravagant, restaurant and lay his soul bare. He rehearsed the speech in the shower, in the car, during board meetings where he'd zone out, his mind replaying the way she tucked her hair behind her ear. He arrived at her modest apartment building, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He was just about to ring the bell when her door opened, and she stepped out, pulling a small wheeled suitcase. "Alex," she said, startled, "what are you doing here?" I wanted to surprise you." "Dinner," he stammered, his eyes fixed on the suitcase. "Are you going somewhere?" A shadow passed over her face, a complex mix of sadness and resolve. "I was going to call you. I have to go away for a few days. Family matter." "Where? Is everything okay?" The protective instinct, so deeply ingrained in him, surged forth. She looked at him, her gaze deep and unreadable. "It's complicated. But since you're here, would you mind giving me a ride to the airport?" The car ride was tense, a stark contrast to their usual easy companionship. The lie sat between them, a silent, screaming passenger. He drove his modest sedan, every fiber of his being screaming to confess, to pull over and beg for forgiveness. But the set of her jaw, the way she stared out the window at the passing city, kept him silent. He pulled up to the departures curb at the international terminal. International. His mind raced. A family matter required an international flight. "Thank you, Alex," she said, her hand on the door handle. "For everything." "Alara." "Wait." The words tumbled out. "Before you go, there's something I need to tell you. It's important." She turned, and her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "There's something I need to tell you, too." They spoke at the same time. "I'm not who you think I am. I know exactly who you are." The world screeched to a halt. The cacophony of the airport faded into a dull, distant roar. Xander felt the blood drain from his face. "What?" Alara took a deep, shuddering breath, her composure cracking. "I know, Alexander." The name, his real name, fell from her lips not as a question, but a statement. A verdict. "I know you're Alexander Vance, CEO of Vance Holdings. I know you live in the penthouse at the top of the Aurora Tower. I know you were testing me, seeing if I was just another gold digger." He stared, utterly paralyzed. The ground beneath him felt like it was turning to quicksand. How long?" "From the beginning," she whispered, her voice breaking. "The day after our first date, Liam left his action figure in my bag. I went to return it. I asked the concierge at your building for Alex's apartment. He looked at me like I was insane. Then he said, 'There is no Alex in this building, ma'am. Only Mr. Vance and his children in the penthouse.'" A single tear traced a path down her cheek. A quick internet search confirmed it. The twist was so brutal, so perfectly executed, it stole the air from his lungs. He had been the puppet, thinking he was the master. All this time, he was the one being tested. "Why?" he choked out, the word a ragged plea. "Why did you keep seeing me?" "Because I fell in love with you," she cried, the pain raw in her voice. "The real you that you were pretending to be. The devoted father, the funny, vulnerable man who was scared of being loved for the wrong reasons. I thought if I gave you time, you would trust me enough to tell me the truth. I kept waiting, Alex. Every day, I waited for you to trust me. But you never did." The truth was a blade, twisting in the wound of his own deceit. He had been so focused on his own test, he never saw hers. Alara, I'm sorry, I was going to tell you tonight, I swear. It's too late, she said, her voice hollow now, all the fight gone out of her. She opened the car door. The family matter, it's my father. He had a heart attack. He's in Geneva. He's the majority shareholder of Laurent Industries. The final piece of the puzzle slammed into place with the force of a physical blow. Laurent Industries, one of the oldest, most powerful, and notoriously private family-owned conglomerates in Europe. Rivals to his own empire. The daughter of his greatest business rival had been sitting across from him in a cheap bistro, seeing through his pathetic charade while he remained utterly blind to hers. She stood on the curb, a queen dethroned, looking down at the king who had tried to play the pauper. You were testing a stranger to see if she was worthy of your world, she said, her eyes holding his, filled with a heartbreaking finality. And I was testing the man I loved to see if he was worthy of the truth. You failed, Alexander. We both did. She turned and walked away, pulling her suitcase behind her, disappearing into the crowd of the international terminal without a single backward glance. Alexander Vance, the billionaire who controlled markets and moved mountains, sat alone in his rented car, utterly destroyed. He had found a woman who loved him for who he was, only to discover that the man she loved was a lie, and the man he truly was utterly unworthy of her. The heartbreaking irony echoed in the silent car. In his quest to find a love that was real, he had engineered the most devastating fake romance of all.